who is a Wurundjeri elder, and we thank Auntie Georgina for her message, which will be played now.
Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Georgina Nicholson and I am a proud Wurundjeri Woiwurrung woman, Wurundjeri being part of the Kulin Nation. The Kulin Nation consists of 5 clans and they are Wurundjeri, Wathaurong, Tunurong, Dja Dja Wurrung and Boon Wurrung. Wurundjeri being all of Melbourne CBD and surrounding country, extending north to the Great Divide, east to Mount Baw, south to Mordialloc Creek and west to the mouth of Werribee River. So I would like to acknowledge and pay my respect to our ancestors who walked and lived on this land as free spirits for millennia. I would also like to acknowledge our elders past, present and future. I would also like to acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today, and I pay my respects to you all and to your elders. So I would like to acknowledge also the Volunteering Victoria AGM. The Minister of Carers and Volunteers, the Honourable Ros Spence, Chair Bronwyn Clark and members of your Board of Directors. For those of you tuning in from Wurundjeri country, I would like to say to you, Womanjika Wurundjeri Balak, Yiman Kundi Bik. And I would just like to say what I've said in our Wurrung language, and that is, welcome to the traditional land of the Wurundjeri people. For those of you tuning in from locations across Victoria, Australia and beyond, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which you are listening from, and I would like to pay my respects to you all and to your elders. I reflect on the legacy of those who have come before me, and I reflect on the long, unbroken, strong line of Aboriginal women I come from, and I think about the challenges they faced, and I do draw some strength from them. And one of those women being my mother, Martha Margaret Nicholson, née Terrick. She was delivered by her grandmother, Granny Jemima, and that was on Corrandirk, Aboriginal mission near the present-day town of Healesville. So Granny Jemima was already teaching our mother the importance of family, culture, and caring for one another and caring for country, connection to land. Years later, our mother met a deadly Irish man called Patrick on a blind date in Melbourne in the early 1930s. In 1937, Mummy and Daddy were married and they had 8 boys, 8 girls, no twins, all single babies, so no cheating, lol. I'm the youngest of the 16 and my sister Pat Ockwell is the eldest. My sister Pat is an amazing senior elder who has made a lifelong commitment to her communities and peoples. Sister Pat is 87 now. For an Aboriginal woman to reach this age is a milestone. For they say Aboriginal people don't live as long as non-Aboriginal people. There's about a 15-year gap there. And I know that is why we are pretty constantly in sorry business. But we must carry on the culture for our people as our ancestors did. My brother and my mother and her mother and so on have done for us. So I stand here today because of my mother, Martha Nicholson. She was a strong cultural woman who instilled great values in me. William Barak, his younger sister Annie Barrett, is my direct ancestral bloodline. So all of Wurundjeri people come from the one woman, Annie Barrett. One tradition being our Wurrung language is part of our rich, deep heritage, and I like to say our language has been sleeping, but we're waking it up now. And some of the ways we keep our culture alive is through songs, stories and performances. The coronavirus pandemic has changed the world in ways we would never have imagined, and the implications for our community have been profound for our health, our well-being and our jobs. But in many ways this event online today has brought into focus the importance of relationships with family and connection with one another as a community. We crave and need connection as people, I think, and I didn't realise how important this was until it was taken from us. It has been a mentally challenging time, if not for most. Aboriginal culture is the longest, oldest continuing culture. It goes back to 65,000 years plus. So we as Aboriginal people, we do know about resilience, solidarity and connection to land. There have been no treaties with us up to date, but our future generations hopefully will get benefit from that. We have never ceded our sovereignty, so our ancestors never gifted our land nor they sold it. It was stolen from us. So Wurundjeri people would just like you to please respect the land, the waters, flora and fauna, and of course we respect each other. Take care, stay safe and have a great event. Thank you for having me and have a good Christmas. Bye.
Thank you very much for that message, Auntie Georgina, and the warm welcome. And I really loved hearing all of that family history and the prominence of strong women in your life. I just want to mention before we move to the next speaker that this meeting is being recorded. So just so that you are aware. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Ros Spence, the Minister for Carers and Volunteers. And I know including the word volunteers in your portfolio, Minister, is very welcome to all of us on the line today and holds great hope for our sector. So thank you very much for being here, and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Bronwyn. And to begin with, can I also acknowledge the First Peoples and traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and to all elders who have joined us here today. And that really was a terrific welcome to country, so I enjoyed that. Can I also acknowledge Tu Trang, the CEO, Bronwyn Clark, Chair of the Board, the whole Volunteering Victoria Board, the team, the members, and all of the guests that are joining this morning. And thank you so much for the invitation to join you all at the 2023 Volunteering Victoria AGM. Can I also at the outset note that the Allan Labor government recognises the invaluable contribution of volunteers in our communities and the vital role that they play in supporting community programs and services. And last month, I was delighted to be appointed Minister for Carers and Volunteers and the first Minister for Volunteering in Victoria. And I want to particularly acknowledge Volunteering Victoria's really important role as the state's volunteering peak body. And I look forward to working collaboratively with Tu Trang and the Volunteering Victoria team on tangible approaches to enhance, support and strengthen volunteering in Victoria. The Victorian Volunteer Strategy provides that 5-year plan to revitalise, reimagine and strengthen volunteering in Victoria. A key priority is to encourage people who have previously volunteered to return, and whilst also growing and diversifying the pool of Victorian volunteers. Initial implementation of the strategy included a $1.3 million investment in 2022-23, and this enabled the delivery of the $1 million Emerging Stronger program, which supported 19 projects to re-engage volunteers and to strengthen volunteering in local communities. It also delivered the Ready to Volunteer communications campaign and the Transforming Volunteering Training and Mentoring program that are delivered by Volunteering Victoria. Volunteering Victoria also plays a really important role in our volunteer strategy through their sector development and leadership role. The Volunteering Awards are an annual celebration to recognise the incredible diversity and impact of volunteering across Victoria. I thank Volunteering Victoria for their partnership to deliver the new Volunteering Awards program that recognises both outstanding volunteer-involving organisations as well as individual volunteering efforts. Finalists will be announced in late 2023, and I look forward to meeting and congratulating the recipients of the 2023 Volunteering Awards at a special ceremony early next year. As everyone here knows, volunteers provide crucial support to their communities, giving their time and their skills to help deliver a range of community and social services. Volunteering has positive impacts on mental and physical health through active living, relieving feelings of isolation and loneliness, and providing meaning and purpose. Volunteering can also help people develop new skills and experiences and provide a pathway to new education, training, and employment opportunities. And with such a diverse and vibrant sector, a strong and consistent voice for volunteering is so important. So to that end, I thank Volunteering Victoria for your ongoing advocacy. I encourage members and non-members alike to keep working with your peak body to create impactful opportunities to strengthen and sustain volunteering. So thank you again for inviting me to join you this morning, and also for your understanding that this is a parliamentary sitting day. So unfortunately, I can't stay for the duration and will need to jump off the call, but I really wish you all the very best for the AGM today. Thanks, Bronwyn.
Thank you very much, Minister. I really appreciate you ducking out of Parliament for a few minutes to speak with us, and welcome to our sector. Welcome back to our sector. We really look forward to working with you. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, we'll move on now to formally declare open the annual general meeting. I will ask the VV team to check while I'm going through the agenda just to confirm that we do have a quorum, which is 25 members online. So we will look at the 2022 minutes. I'll deliver my report, then the financial report. We will announce the new directors, and then we'll hand over to Trang for her CEO's report before our guest speaker. So I saw a nod from Sarah, so just confirming that we have a quorum. Great, thank you, Jeff, we have quorum. Okay, the first order of business is to confirm the 2022 minutes, and they were sent out to you on the 2nd of October, and I believe we're going to put a link to the minutes in the chat. So could I please ask for someone to move that we confirm the minutes of the 2022 Volunteering Victoria AGM? Are there any changes or objections? If not, we'll move that motion. I have someone in the chat, please, to say that they move that. I'm sorry, I can't really see any hands going up because I'm just on a laptop. So if you could please put that in the chat, someone to move that motion. Thank you, Stacey, and I'll take Dale as seconding that. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have no notices of motion or special resolutions in receipt, so we do not have any issues there to consider. So let's move on then to the Chair's report, and I'll just get my other document up. So it's really a great pleasure this year to report back on what we've been doing at VV. It's been a year of change. We did appoint the wonderful Trang Tran as CEO in January 2023 to steward our brand new strategic plan, our brand new 2022-25 strategic plan. A really great big special thank you goes out to Scott Miller, our former CEO, and Antoine Guillemette, who was acting CEO for quite some time. They steered the organisation and the sector over a period of significant change brought about by the pandemic, changed federal and state funding arrangements and ministerial appointments. I'd also just at this point shout out the entire Volunteering Victoria team who have worked tirelessly and relentlessly during this period of change and uncertainty, and they've shown great resilience and strength, and we're very grateful for all their work. The ethos and energy underpinning the new strategy for VV is to explore, build and shape broad system dynamics, to advance practice, advocate for the volunteering sector and collaborate cross-sector to build community. We continue to do this with and for all volunteers, communities and organisations with a clear-eyed view of system-level impacts. Significantly, we realise this principle through the design of a place-based statewide network of local partnerships, a unique model in the national landscape, I must say. This work focuses on delivering digital supports for organisations to advance volunteering engagement practices and break down barriers to volunteering. As a state peak, we continue to press governments of all three levels, local, state and federal, during and post-elections in public forums and closed room meetings to make strategic investments to build up volunteering infrastructure. Notably, after rallying for a Victorian ministerial portfolio for volunteering, we've just seen that the Allan Victorian Government has appointed its first Minister for Volunteers in 2023. We also humbly recognise there is still much to learn about volunteering engagement practices and an ongoing need to amplify leadership and stories of those from broader communities. Our special interest groups and community giving in First Nations communities report ensures valuable experiences of diverse and First Nations peoples are infused into volunteering engagement and community building activities. Further, we are practicing rigorous reflection to understand the collective impact of our collaborative work. For example, our flagship pioneering continuing professional development program is being evaluated by Monash University and receiving early validation for its impact in uplifting leadership practices in volunteering engagement over the past few years. In our exploration of new stories and practices, we reflect and craft new frames of volunteering and volunteering involvement that go beyond dichotomies such as formal and informal and silos such as skilled and corporate volunteering. Our aim is to unearth and test assumptions about volunteering, saying volunteering is not just helping a charity or a cause. Volunteering is engagement, not just involvement. Volunteering is central to community building and leadership. Volunteering is a well-being activity akin to exercise or sporting activity. These starting points lead us to open new doors in new ways. For example, an emphasis on volunteering as a well-being activity leads to conversations about measuring well-being outcomes for volunteers themselves, alongside that of volunteering programs. Thus, investments into volunteering infrastructure are primarily about fostering community health and well-being, and not just about a shadow or unpaid workforce. As you'll see in this report, we are excited to send the cross-sector conversations beyond volunteering ecosystem to explore, build, and shape strategies for impact. It is our belief, supported by the overwhelming evidence, that volunteering is an essential piece of the economic and social environment that cuts across sectors. Levers in government, business and community are needed to build up a volunteering culture for a happier and healthier society. We look forward to continuing this journey with you in 2024. You will see there the link to the annual report, and having delivered the Chair's statement, I would ask if anyone has any questions, and if you could put them in the chat so that we can all see them, that would be great. If not, of course, happy to answer them during the meeting or offline. But if there are no questions, I would move that the Chairperson's 2022-23 report be accepted. And I will move that motion. And can I ask for someone to second that, please? Thank you, Helen. We'll take that as second. And are there any objections? No. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the financial report now, which is also in the annual report, the last couple of pages. I'll just quickly run through. It's all very self-explanatory, but I will just run through one change. Let me just get the right pages up. So we did have a restatement of our finances in this financial year. And what that means is there was an amount of money related to the VMA funding that was counted in one particular budget line in the previous financial year. But we received very, very late in the day, in fact, after the financials had been done, advice from DSS about what we could do with that money. So we had to restate the finances to make sure that it truly reflected the financial position. So you will see, if you compared the previous financial years to last year's, you will see a shift. But the numbers at the end of the day remain the same. It's just the way that we've presented it in the financial statements. So you will see that the revenue was only was down, and that's related to the VMA funding as well. And the so compared to that 2022 restated finances, we did start out with a different outlook from this past financial year. So you will see there are no major changes apart from some significant decreases, some significant savings that were made through staffing restructures once programs finished. And yes, I think that's, Two Trangs did a great job in that first half of the year of really having a look at where we could make some savings, and she implemented those straight away. So you will see we still have a healthy equity position. Are there any questions around the financial report? And I'd actually like to thank Veronica Chong, our treasurer, who's done a great amount of work working with the VV team to get the finances into a great state that they are. So thank you, Veronica. I can't see any questions coming through the chat. So what I would like to do is ask for someone to move that the financial report for the year ended 30 June 2023 be accepted. Someone like to move that, please, in the chat. Thank you. We've got a few there. Let me just scroll up. So we have, sorry, can't quite see it. Con O'Brien, thank you. I knew it was there somewhere. Thank you, Con, for moving that, and we'll take Stacey Ramage as seconding it. Is everyone in favour? If there are no objections, we'll move that motion, and we'll also put in a special vote of thanks to the volunteers on our finance committee who play a really crucial role in keeping VV on track and accountable. Great, thank you. We now move on to the next item on the board, which is around some changes to the board. And the first is to thank Bradley Smith, who stepped down recently as a director. Bradley has played a really pivotal role on the board for the past, I think it's nearly 6 years. Would that be? Or 4, sorry. But he's just been an incredible voice from the sector, and we have really appreciated all the contribution that he's made. He stepped down to take on some pretty arduous study. So we wish him all the very best with that, and thank him again for the contribution he made. So we did have some vacancies to fill and some directors who were eligible for renomination at this AGM. And so I would like to now introduce Craig Edwards, who is acting as returning officer to confirm the outcome of the nomination process and the outcome of the election. Craig, I'll hand over to you.
myself off mute. Yeah, we had 3 nominations for director. We had, get the sums right, 11 votes, if I got the numbers right, members who voted. One of them unfortunately didn't pay their dues, so they have not been included in the return. The end result of the outcomes for people voting for 2 directors, Clem Unga, 8 official votes, Con was 8 official votes, and Brett Holland was 6 official votes. So the end outcome being Con O'Brien and Clem's Unga being having their votes to be appointed to the board.
Great. Thank you, Craig. Thanks for managing that process for us. And I'm sure we'll see you again next time. Thanks very much, Craig, for joining us today. And congratulations to Con and for being re-elected as a director, and a great big welcome to Clemens Unga on your election to the board. We're very much looking forward to welcoming you to the team and working with you. Okay, let's head back to the next agenda item, which I believe is the CEO's report. Great, thank you. So it's a great pleasure now to welcome Tran to talk to us for a moment. And I'd particularly like to thank her. She's actually come in today from personal leave, dealing with a complex situation. We really appreciate her dedication to Volunteering Victoria for being here today. And in that sense, I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Jeff Sharp, who's a director of the board, who's stepped away from director duties right at the moment and is stepping in to support the team, the VB team, while Tu Trang is on personal leave. So Tu Trang, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Bron. Welcome, everyone. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners on which I am here in Sydney, and also pay my respects to all the elders past and present also in Victoria, that where you are coming from. So I stepped in to Volunteering Victoria definitely during a time of change for the sector, for a lot of volunteer resource centres and also Volunteering Victoria. And I stepped in with a strategic direction from the board as part of the new strategy to really think about building a thriving, inclusive volunteering culture that is inclusive and accessible to make Victorians happier. And I come back to that in part of my report. So the shift in our focus towards systemic changes so that volunteering is a strategic priority for decision makers, and therefore gets the strategic systemic investment it needs, not just towards volunteer resource centres or peak bodies, but to communities that are volunteer-led, to local councils, to SES, to community sports that rely on volunteering. This means reaching out to leaders in all sectors, and that we need to work in strong coalitions, inviting others into our space and to build cross-sectoral bridges. And so that's been my remit, actively stepping outside the space, but also making sure I engage with stakeholders in our volunteering ecosystem to discern the need. And these are the needs I have discerned from not just my time in Volunteering Victoria, but my 3 years in Volunteer West in a regional peak body. So the highlights for Volunteering Victoria this year cut across at individual and community level, but also to system settings. And you'll see this in our report. Some personal highlights I wish to draw out. We moved to a new office into the CBD to ensure that we are accessible and can access stakeholders statewide. We have an incredible celebration of volunteering with 422 award nominations, and we continue to celebrate volunteering in our National Volunteers Week event, celebrating young change makers. At a systems level, we finally could celebrate the NDIS volunteer screening checks online. And this was an initiative VV long campaigned for years before my time in state and national coalitions. In terms of substantive engagement with government, public policy and agencies from our advocacy efforts, we really advocated for the building of soft and hard volunteering infrastructure. In all our submissions, in all our conversations with a minister like Minister Ross Spence and ministers and executives across departments like workplace. So some of the submissions that we have received active engagement from government include the philanthropy review at the Commonwealth level, the flood inquiry, where Volunteering Victoria was one of the few organisations that were called to appear before the Senate inquiry to give further evidence. And also we celebrate that we were able to engage as part of our RAP, giving a report on community giving in First Nations communities. So one of my personal achievement is stepping into VV with the new strategy from the board, sharpening the strategic posture and pathways for Volunteering Victoria and for the volunteering sector. So the strategic engagement that we are undertaking is about storytelling about volunteering needs and elevating those outside the volunteering ecosystem. So advocating for a reframing from the sector and from others to see volunteering, as Bron articulated, volunteering as active community building, volunteering as a wellbeing activity. And so we begin with a concept of building ecosystems where volunteering is front and center for social change. And volunteers are not just supporters of social change for charities, but leaders of community change throughout all levels of community. So this deep and cross-sector conversation is being progressed and continue next year in our state conference in 2024. So I move to the next agenda item to share with you about our exciting state conference, where we have 3 streams of workshops, panels, speakers, and the 3 streams are explorers, builders, and shapers. Are you intrigued? Then please find out more from our conference website. This is a conference for broad and inventive and left-of-centre conversations, parallel worlds about community building. So please invite all stakeholders from business sector, from corporates, from government, from community, from diverse communities outside your space and welcome them into your space. So for the first time at our state conference, we have a couple of options that haven't been trialled before. So we're experimenting, and this is also part of our ethos to have an organisation and a sector that is reflective, experimental and innovative. So we have an in-person conference at the Pullman at East Melbourne next to Treasury Gardens, so very accessible in terms of public transport. Here, attendees get the full experience of the 3 streams. We also make sure we have a hybrid experience for people logging in online and structure the program so it is engaging. And we also deliver a stream specifically designed for regions, a hybrid experience where we have 2 regional hubs. And this delivers on our commitment to make volunteering inclusive and accessible in the regions. Why? Because volunteering in the region is an absolute essential part of community building. And we want to broker the local relationships that comes from a conference and have that as a legacy of the conference experience. And again, I want to highlight that Volunteering Victoria and the board and the team are very much about building a system and a network of place-based all tiers of volunteering infrastructure. And so what's so exciting? We have early bird prices that attract 15% discounts. So come on board early. We also definitely have special member rates. So sign on to be a member and really engage you in conversations beyond volunteering, but with volunteering at the heart and center of social change. Thank you, Bron.
Thanks to Trang, and that really is exciting. And I think, you know, as chair of this organisation, I'm very proud about those 3 streams and the accessibility that we are providing by doing those 3 options. So thanks for your report to Trang, and thanks for all your work getting us to where we are. So it's very exciting times ahead. So I would like to now formally close the annual general meeting of Volunteering Victoria for 2023. Thank you all very much to my fellow board members who've again put in a lot of volunteer hours and expertise to guide this organisation. Thank you again to Tu Trang and all of the VV team. We really are so impressed by your resilience and ability to just keep going in the midst of change and uncertainty. And thank you all so much to the members. We are here because you are our members, and I think we've got some very exciting times ahead and a chance to really reshape and reimagine, as the Minister said, what volunteering is and can be. So thank you all very much. And I will now hand back to Tu Trang to introduce our wonderful guest speaker for the rest of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Bron. Safe flight.
Thank you.
So I wish now to introduce you to Laura. Laura Cochrane is the CEO of the Bennelong Foundation Australia and Bennelong Foundation UK. Previously, she led National Australia Bank's philanthropic portfolio, overseeing the NAB Foundation and volunteering and giving programs for the organisation's 30,000 employees. She was also a member of the corporate working group in the development of the 2022 National Strategy for Volunteering. Laura is driven by her passion to build bridges between those who have influence and power and those who need them to effect social change. Welcome, Laura.
Take myself off mute. Well, thank you very much for having me, Trang. It's a delight to be here today and understand even more deeply the wonderful work that Volunteering Victoria has done over the past year and will continue to do. So thank you to Bronwyn and to yourself and the board for having me along. As Trang said, I am currently the CEO of the Bennelong Foundation. I've been in this role, this is week 7, so I'm very new and finding my feet. But for those of you who don't know the foundation, we are a foundation based in Melbourne. It's a family office foundation. It's part of a wider group of companies. And so it is almost like a mini foundation within a mini corporate, so to speak. And previous to this, I did work in a very big corporate in National Australia Bank and was in charge of their philanthropy. So that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about today, is my experience in corporate philanthropy and corporate volunteering. A little bit more about me generally. I live in a inner city suburb, very culturally diverse, and I have 2 young children and a husband. And so my volunteering at the moment mostly centres around my children and their school and their community work. In fact, I was making lots of Christmas cakes last night for a big event at our school on Sunday. So my very much community-based volunteering that I do at the moment, as well as some work on boards and other things as well. But I'd like to start by talking about my experience coming into a leadership of a philanthropy program in a corporate and a volunteering program. So I started in a role managing NAB's volunteering program and philanthropy in October 2019. And just as I thought I was getting my head around it all, we went into the summer bushfires and then we had COVID. And so my introduction into managing volunteering was rocky and fraught. And I quickly discovered, and probably people can resonate with this, is most people think just volunteering takes care of itself and that it happens on the side. This is true within a big corporate as well. It's always there. People love to have it. And then all of a sudden there's a big event and they say, well, why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? And how, why is this organised? And why can't I just rock up to a natural disaster site and give my time and donate all of my goods? And so I think what that experience taught me was that education around volunteering is extremely important in all walks of life, and was particularly important within a corporate setting. And so that became part of my remit of the role that I played at NAB, was education within the organisation, also outside the organisation, around volunteering in the corporate sector and employee volunteering. So as part of that role, I did get to experience being part of the creation of the National Strategy for Volunteering, and it gave me a really great chance to speak to many other corporate volunteering leaders as well within different organisations. I loved working within philanthropy in a corporate because I think it's the only team in a big corporate where competitors talk to each other and share all the information they can. So it's an extremely collaborative world and sector, and that was wonderful. And I think what that experience taught me was that, you know, corporate volunteering has many similarities to community volunteering, but different pressures as well. And so what being part of that group, what I took away from that, a number of things, but what I felt and what I saw with the rest of the group as well is that within corporates and within big organisations, they do have varying levels of policy and engagement around volunteering, but it's always a source of pride for the leaders. So the leaders like to talk about the fact that there is corporate volunteering, and many of them do believe deeply in it and give their time to it. But volunteering teams, social impact teams, corporate responsibility teams, philanthropy teams within a big corporate are not always the recipient of investment within the organisation. They don't make any money. And so the real value that team brings within a corporate has to be articulated in many other ways. And I can come back to that a little bit more later. I think the other thing that's interesting within corporate volunteering is the rules and regulations are complex and onerous, just like in community volunteering. But mostly volunteers within a corporate are using their time on the clock, working for that organisation to go and volunteer. And so that adds a complexity around duty of care as an employer to the people who are going to volunteer. And so navigating the various elements of regulations around that, and particularly insurance, is extremely difficult for a lot of corporates. And it actually turns a lot of corporates off because the insurance expectations can be too hard, particularly for, say, mid-sized corporates as well, and potentially smaller ones as well. I think what I loved about working in that role, though, and what is great about corporate volunteering, is when it's done well, everyone wins, because obviously the recipient of the volunteering is able to achieve its goals. The people who have actually done the volunteering feel an incredible sense of philanthropy and giving their time and their skills for something great. And when it hits the goals of the actual organisation as well, and sometimes they can be business goals, and I'll come back to that, the value of that volunteering is really felt by people in the organisation. And so it's a wonderful experience when it goes very, very well. And those 3 points were sort of very similar across the range of the group that was involved in the corporate working group. And just to give you a sense of who else was in there was people from Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, PwC, Origin Energy, NAB, and a few others as well. And the process going through there, I think I'm actually going to share a slide quickly just with sort of my 3 key takeaways from that process. Sorry, 1 second. So as part of that corporate working group, I think building on what I said before, employee volunteering in leadership and management is often undervalued within a big corporate. The people who work in these roles, and I know that was the team that worked for me, are extremely passionate about it and are very, very good at what they do. But it's not seen as a career path into an organisation like NAB or another big bank. So usually the people who are working in a volunteering team or a corporate or a philanthropy team within an organisation have come from within the organisation doing other roles first. And so they don't have a background in volunteering, which I think is to the detriment of the programs. And I think one thing that I'd really like to see more of is recruitment from within the volunteering and community sector into corporates, because I think that would just bring a level of knowledge that would really benefit both parties in the equation. I think there are opportunities to replicate and scale successful models. And I think this is particularly true increasingly in online volunteering and skilled volunteering. And I can come back to that a little bit more. I can give you an overview of one of the programs that was run at NAB that has started to replicate and scale, which is a great success. And then finally, intermediaries are increasingly playing a key role between a corporate and community organisations. And I think corporates are increasingly realising that they don't have the skills and the capabilities to be able to do the deeper work with community organisations that those community organisations are entitled to and should have. And so bringing people in to help manage those relationships and do a lot of that groundwork, for lack of a better word, I think is increasingly becoming a trend as well in big corporates, because the management or the expectations on volunteering managers in corporates is so wide ranging. They just often don't have the time to do that work, which is really important. Is there any questions? I might just stop and see if there's any questions or comments up until this point, just on that process of the corporate working group within the Volunteering Australia strategy. Did anyone have any insights they wanted to share or questions, comments? No? Great. Okay, so I wanted to jump on a bit more around how a corporate volunteering team can work and how interactions with community sectors have operated in my experience and from what I've seen in other corporates as well. And I think just as a starting point with the corporates are such complicated beasts. I mean, many of you, I'm sure, have worked in corporates as well, but particularly large corporates, they have power structures and cultures and communication flows and systems and hierarchies that a manager of a program like volunteering in a corporate has to navigate every single day. And so the people responsible for social impact or volunteering or whatever it might be called, that team might be called, are managing a network of people inside their organisation that is almost larger than the network they're managing outside the organisation. And that's understanding the motivations, the expectations, the changing motivations, the changing expectations all the time to make sure that the program that they're running is being advocated for at the right levels of the organisation at any given time. And so, internally there's board, group executives, the employees themselves, employer community groups, I should say employer groups, and then there's the communication tools and the leaders around communication that is really important as well. And then at any moment as well, the voices of our external stakeholders can come in and influence how we run a program or where we intersect. And so that includes shareholders, both institutional and retail, our customers themselves, employees, government, advocacy groups, all of those voices are continually being kept track of, and understanding how they may impact the program as an end result. I think generally corporate leaders want their teams to be able to do volunteering, but in many cases don't put as much value on the logistics or the actual organisation of that volunteering. And that's the gap for me that I think is where education is really important. The volunteering doesn't just happen. As all of you know, it takes considered investment and considered time. And so one of the things that I was continually doing was educating people around that need to invest in volunteering in the way that you would invest in a grant program through a foundation. And so, really doing that piece of education. And then that is increasingly growing the more that the corporate volunteering teams and corporate social impact teams can advocate for their work and people can understand that more, then that will, that gap will close. I think where it can really cut through within an organisation is in what the value proposition is for employees in an organisation for volunteering. So, what is that motivation for a company organising volunteering for their people? Now, at the very basic level, it's team engagement. You get a bunch of people together who have to have their head at a desk all day. You get them to look up, you get them to go out and do a community event somewhere, and they bond with each other and they're a better working team at the end of it. Now, that was a very successful model, I'd say, pre-COVID. I think it has continued to have some success, but the reality is now people working from home, they're not working from home when they're actually having the same day in the office. They all just want to be in the office doing their work together. They don't potentially want to go out and do some volunteering together anymore. So that is changing. It's still there, but it's probably the demand isn't maybe as high as it used to be. I think what can be a really good motivator and a value proposition is talent pathways and leadership development. So particularly in skilled volunteering. So there is a program that NAB has run for a number of years, which we call Community Strategy Challenges. And this actually used that intermediary model. So we worked with an organisation called Australian Business Volunteers, and we created a program in which ABV, or Australian Business Volunteers, would identify big strategic problems that a not-for-profit was experiencing. So these could be, the ability, they didn't have a CRM, or they didn't have the ability to do some deep strategic thinking about a problem that they're facing or what the solution might be. And so ABV worked with these not-for-profits, identified the strategic problem, and then came back to us and said, this is the problem and we need 10 volunteers for a 2-week period. And they essentially became secondments for NAB's employees to second into a not-for-profit as a group for 2 weeks and solve that problem. And that over time became a really recognised talent pathway for people of different levels within the organisation, and a leadership development pathway as well. And so that was really a project that started with a volunteering team, but ended up being co-owned with a people and engagement team, or a HR team, whichever you want to call it, because it became a source of developing talent and developing leadership. And I think more and more that is something that will be increasingly, more common in volunteering within corporates, is how do you use it to help your people develop themselves at the same time. And then I think the final one I mentioned is also cultural engagement as well. So, how can you use volunteering as an opportunity to teach your employees about different cultures and diversity and inclusion as well, and whether that be skilled or online volunteering or in-person volunteering. So I think overall, really, there is a balance that is continually happening within corporates around volunteering. There's the balancing the opportunities that the volunteering team can see with the value proposition into the organisation, and then obviously the needs of the community organisations that we work with or have worked with, and then obviously the communities being served. And so it's finding the thread, I think, of where that common ground is amongst all those stakeholders, where there will be the best outcomes. I think trends developing as well. I can see other trends. There's more of an investment in tools. I think with big corporates, you've just got to organise your people. And so there has been some investment in platforms and programs that help with volunteering, programs like Hobby Communiteer and Good to Give. I know they're going into volunteering as well. They workplace matching, donation matching platform. Places like Benevity as well. So investment into these tools that help make volunteering much more easy for people within an organisation, certainly a trend. I think also partnerships over sort of one-offs as well and individual events. So, where is the opportunity for a corporate and a community organisation to develop a multi-year partnership which involves volunteering, but also other value adds across from both sides as well. So what is the education opportunities for that not-for-profit into the corporate to teach them about the work that they're doing and broaden the organisation's awareness? And similarly, where can that corporate help the not-for-profit with use of facilities and use of training and so the base of the partnership may be around volunteering, but where is the other value adds that you could build around that as well? And that while I think there will always be, fee for service arrangements between corporates and volunteerism, those partnership developments mean things can be a lot more consistent for both parties as well. And I think more and more the individual efforts of employees are being celebrated by central teams. And so, there are employees who are passionate about their causes and do an amazing effort of volunteering in different parts of an organisation. And so finding those people and amplifying their messages and showing other people within the organisation the benefits of volunteering from a communication perspective, that storytelling, which Trang was talking about before as well, is emerging more and more. I will say that for some really good academic reading you can do on corporate volunteering is put together by Debbie Haskey-Leppenthal. She has some fantastic articles, but also actually an amazing book out at the moment as well. So I would certainly recommend, if you wanted to do some more further reading, she's a great resource. And I'm happy to chat with anyone else as well at any point if they would like to. So I know I've got 1 minute left, I think, so I'll just my final corporates what to consider, just one slide summary here. So within a corporate, when you're thinking about potentially setting up or thinking about approaching corporates or they approach you, I would really ask a lot of questions about their funding and decision-making structure. So how is corporate volunteering funded within an organisation? Is it funded from a central budget? Is it funded from a foundation? Is it, separately, is there a separate trustee fund that funds this? There's lots of different ways by which volunteering can be funded, and it's really good to understand that. And then the decision-making around that. So are the decisions around where people volunteer and how they volunteer and who they volunteer with done by the volunteering team? Is it an executive decision, a management decision, or if the funding's coming from a foundation or a trust, is it the trustees or the board members who have to decide that? Just to summarise what I was talking about before about that thread, I think, that's just match the motivation. So understand your motivations for wanting volunteers to come in, understand the motivations of the organisation wanting their people to volunteer, and just, the closer they are aligned together, I think the better it works. And really thinking about the volunteering value. So the time of a volunteering activity and the type, the more online, potentially some of those skilled volunteering opportunities I think is a really good way to think about different ways to get people volunteering. And that's it. I think you're on mute.
I should
there, Fran.
unmute. Thank you. I went into a spiel. Thank you, Laura. Laura and I had a coffee, and Laura heard the challenges of volunteering, and she workshopped with me right there and then what she shared with you today as an outsider, insider, and your insights are so invaluable. And so I take up the challenge that you posed to me and posed to our membership today, that the volunteering sector continues and needs to continue to build the bridges that connect to the drivers and interests of other sectors as much as it is about sharpening the value of volunteering. And so with that, I segue to a call for presenters and presentations to the state conference by December the 8th. And again, I encourage you and your network to table provocative conversations, outsider, insider insights that you hear around the grapevine. And last but not least, in closing, an event like this and all the paperwork, including the annual report, the conference materials, requires an enormous amount of preparation. And the team have really shone today, as you can see at the event, including getting the minister to do the video recording. And so with that, I formally close the event and thank you for your participation and commitment to the volunteering cause. I think Laura, if you have 5 minutes to take questions, we are 2 minutes over time, but we can stay on for another 5 minutes, Laura, for any
very happy to. Yes,
for questions from the floor. And for those that have to go, the event has formally closed, but happy to take the floor. Not just to Laura, but to myself or to the board. Gillian. Gillian, was that your hand up, Gillian?
Yes, it was. Can I ask one question? Thank you, Laura. It was very, very interesting. I had a friend who works at a large accounting firm, and they were looking for volunteering opportunities, and we'd had a whole lot of chats. And then he said that they had finally got something together. They were very surprised at how much it cost them as an organization. So I'm assuming that's the fee for service that you're talking about. I try to explain to him how much organization goes into it, and that it's all very well that they're offering people to help, but that there's all this organization that goes on around it. I'd just be interested in your comments on that.
Absolutely. I think there is a real lack of understanding around the resources that are needed to organise volunteering. I had one leader at NAB say to me, but it's volunteering, it should be free. Volunteering's free, it should be free, you know. And that's the kind of attitude that can, you know, prevail, unfortunately, or is just commonly accepted, I think, because in a world where everyone is making money, and, you know, their aim is to make money. That's what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so, you know, to have a conversation about something that doesn't make them money but costs them money, which, you know, is a constant challenge that, you know, social impact teams, sustainability teams face within a big organisation, it can be just, you know, they just blinkers kind of go up like this. And so I think that's part of the education, that just continual conversation around the, you know, the value of the capacity that builds volunteering. And, you know, as Trang was saying, you know, just understanding the motivations of the sector, people intersecting with the sector. And so I think it's a good fight that lots of people are, you know, fighting and coming up against. But the only thing I could say in those specific interactions is, you know, potentially it's itemizing it. You know, it's saying it costs this much because this person's time costs that much per hour, and that's how long it's going to take to organise the volunteering. It costs this much to get the health and safety check done, and so that's what it is here, and this much. And so when they see the big costs and see the figure and go, wow, that's a lot of money, I didn't know it was going to cost that, you say, well, okay, here's an itemised list of actually how much it does cost, and this is why it costs this much. Yeah, I think a lot of people go into it in corporate thinking, oh, volunteering, that'd be a nice thing to do, and then they get, they don't think about the organisation of it. Yeah.
So Laura,
sorry.
coming off that, I think one of the conversations I mentioned to you was that my vision, say, was philanthropists and donors actively say on, say, their grant application forms, please put in the costs to support volunteering and make it a budget line. So this is what I mean by strategic investment at a systems level. Just even saying that gives people permission to say volunteering is not free. Now that you are the CEO of a foundation, is that something perhaps you might take on and do in your role? And is that something you think might be a trend-setting move across the sector?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So there is volunteering that this foundation organises for the other businesses within the group that it's part of, and it hasn't looked at the cost of that volunteering to date. But obviously, with my champion Trang on my side, I'm certainly going to be thinking about that more and how to integrate that more into our grant conversations. I think there's also potential, and there are some organisations who have done this already, around grants for volunteering. And so I know the Atlassian Foundation did this a few years ago, where they actually had a grant round for organisations to apply for funding to organise volunteering for their organisation as well. And I can't recall whether that was just for Atlassian people to go in and do volunteering or others as well. I'd have to go back and have a look. But, I think that is something that is absolutely could be used as a conversation across the sector, because philanthropy more and more is thinking about capacity building and untied funding. I think years ago it was all sort of open grant rounds, 1 year funding, small projects, and that still exists, absolutely, but more and more philanthropists are doing multi-year, not completely untied funding, but that capacity building funding. And so if volunteering is part of that conversation, I think that's just the better for everybody.
Thank you, Laura. I'm conscious that we are now hitting the 5 minutes that I've asked extra of you. So I'll formally close the event, and thank you again, Laura. And we hope to continue the conversation with you in your new role. And we'll continue to champion alongside you if you have give us the permission and the space to do so.
Of course.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Laura.